this moment nobody wants. It's always like, we want the next moment. We want the payoff moment. I'm making coffee. I don't want this moment. I want to drink the coffee. It's Monday. I want to be on Friday where I can go out this weekend. So you're always looking ahead for happiness. And it's like what that does, it puts happiness on a hamster wheel that's ahead of you for the rest of your life, because you're saying it's not where you are. So you're thinking, this guy's going to make me happy. This car is going to make me happy. A smaller butt is going to make whatever it is. And then that'll make you happy for what, 10 minutes, 20 minutes? And then the next thing's it's never enough. So when you're living that way, happiness is ahead of you, and it will constantly elude you.
Hi, I'm Blake Schofield, founder and CEO of The Bridge to Fulfillment. Mom to 3, USA Today top 10 professional coach, and former corporate executive who got tired of sacrificing my life for a comfortable paycheck. My mission is to expand perspectives to achieve greater impact at home and work without sacrifice. This is The Bridge to Fulfillment.
Wow, this episode is incredibly powerful. I am going to encourage you to listen to every single bit of it and earmark this one to come back to it in 3, 6, 9, or 12 months, because you will be a different person and different things from this will land for you. Today, I interviewed guest expert Brent Webb. He's an acclaimed mind power expert and personal development leader that has headlined his own programs at hotels, resorts, casinos, cruise ships, and colleges. He's created seminars and training programs for Fortune 500 companies, including Google, Ford, Nabisco, and Hilton Hotels. Brent has worked with superstars like Joan Rivers, Chaka Khan, Sia, Dionne Warwick, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, and he's appeared twice at the White House. He teaches people how to understand the hidden abilities they possess to do more, be more, and have more in every area of their life, from finances to relationships. It all starts with mindset. And for more than 2 decades, he's focused his entire agenda around helping people create lives of prosperity, rewarding relationships, and spiritual awareness. I can tell you what, I said to Brent at the very end of our conversation, there are proven principles consistently. When you understand them, you see and know how to navigate life in a way of ease, impact, joy, and fulfillment. And while we might use different words or different angles or ways of getting at those same things, I think it's incredibly powerful to be able to hear the conversation, see it from different angles, and understand how these concepts that might be missing in your life can truly change the trajectory in such a positive way for you, your family, your team, your business, whatever that is across your life that you're looking to improve. Thanks so much for being a part of the Bridge to Fulfillment family. I'm excited to introduce you to Brent and to this powerful episode. All right, Brent, welcome to the Bridge to Fulfillment podcast. I'm so happy to have you, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
It's my pleasure. So glad to be here.
Oh, thank you. So, as I always do, I love to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience and just share a little bit about who you are, your background, and how you ended up building the expertise and some of the information you're going to share with us today.
Well, I was a little kid magician. I was an only child from Ohio. So I grew up a little chubby kid, looking for some kind of hobby that would make me, stand out. So like a lot of kids, wanted to be a magician. So for the first, 7, 8 years of my life, it was all about magic tricks and things. And one day I went to the library. I was always taking out magic books. And there was a book on the shelf called The Magic of Believing. And I was like 11, 12 years old. And I thought it was a magic book. I took it home. And when I read it, I realized it wasn't anything to do with magic tricks. It was all about the power of the mind and the power of belief and how you can manifest that in your life. So even though I stuck with entertainment, and I became a speaker, I became a mentalist, I've always been working with companies and training employees and things. And it's just over the last few years since COVID, it's really gave me some time off to kind of look at my career. And I thought, I've done this for 30 years and I've taught millionaires, billionaires, sports teams, celebrities. And I'm thinking, it's really the wrong people. Because just like you said, we were talking a minute ago, and you said it's not widely known. And it's so true. And millionaires, billionaires, celebrities, and athletes, they don't really need the information because they have nannies, they have accountants, they have people to do all their things. They don't need help with their daily life. So really, I made it my mission of the last 4 years, 3 years, to get this in the hands of everybody, just so people can understand there's so much more than we realize, if you just unlock what you have inside you.
Well, first of all, I can so relate to the little boy wanting to be a magician. My oldest, who's now 19, he went through that phase. It was awesome. I think kind of a rite of passage for kids. The ability to believe in things that you can't see, or ways of which you can shock and awe people. What an amazing sort of serendipitous thing that at 11 years old, you found this book and it ignited a passion in you. From my experience, I have found that to be really true of pretty much everyone I've seen in life, that there are moments that change the trajectory of our life, and often we don't see them until we are much further along to be able to connect the dots backwards. I'm interested in understanding, you're 11 years old, you find this book, you're into it. Were you in a family that knew about these things, or were you sort of like this lone wolf figuring this stuff out on your own?
Yeah, I've always been a lone wolf. If I was an only child, I had a big extended family, but I was an only child. And people it's like generational. My parents learned from their parents. They didn't understand any of that. And it was the fluke of finding the book. It was really the first thing. Like since then I started seeing, speakers and coaches and, 12, 13, 14 on television. And I thought, wow, how did I never see any of this before? But it opened an area that, they had no idea existed. And they thought, live, work, have kids, die. That's it. That's what everybody does. And so, I didn't know what it was exactly, but I knew at 11, wow, there is something more to life than I ever thought. I just reading the book, it's just one of those things. It's almost like you've read it before. Like, it's true because you're reading it. And even at 11, it's like, I know this. Like, I feel this. I didn't know what it was, but like you said, from that moment on, it just changed everything. It changed the way I went into everything since then.
I love that so much. I had a book similar for me that I actually was about 15, and it was a book on near-death experiences. And there was something about that book that just rang true to me. And, ironically, many times as I've moved in my life, that is the one book that consistently has come with me everywhere. And today I can look back and see the truth in those things that were taught all the way back then, but I've had lived experience with it. So I love and appreciate how so early we can know who we are, but we can easily lose that by what our parents or society tells us to do. And what a beautiful thing that you grew up in a home that was a very traditional home, right? Traditional viewpoint. And you learned really early, wait a second, there's a different way. And somehow you're coming back full circle to that now to say, how can I help people that grew up like I did? What a beautiful gift. And so I think my question for you in that, especially knowing, I had a very traditional background too. Grew up with two very hardworking parents in corporate retail. And then my dad was actually in academia in the university realm. But I grew up with that, like, you work hard, you have to sacrifice for your job, yada, yada, yada kind of thing. And so I spent 18 years in corporate retail, going through cycles of burnout, going through cycles of fulfillment and lack of fulfillment. And so when I came to understand that there was an entirely different way of living and being than how I had grown up, what I had been surrounded by, and what I envisioned, I often found that to be a struggle sometimes for the people around me to understand it. And so I'm interested in your perspective. You've been doing this for 30 years. You learned this. I would venture to bet that you probably went through the same, especially as a young child, having identified and figured this out. And so I'm interested in your thoughts in that, in terms of what would you say to someone who hasn't really studied or doesn't really realize or understand the power of their mind and the ability to be able to create the life that they want? They only think life looks this way.
Well, I always tell people you have to get out of yourself. You have to step out of yourself a little bit. And so it doesn't matter what you believe spiritually, because some people believe in God, they believe in the universe, they believe in source, whatever that is, that doesn't matter. But there are certain things that are absolutely true. So it doesn't matter, who's saying it, this is true. For the first 10 years of our lives, when we're children, we're programmed. Now, when a child is born, they're a blank slate. And think about it. Think about your children. Think about being a child yourself. When you're a kid, It's like everything's amazing. When you're happy, you laugh. And when you're sad, you cry. That's all normal. But then the parents, the siblings, the teachers, boys do this, girls do this. You can't do this. We can't, people like us can't do that. All of that programming starts. And then the school, and then the media, and then the government. It's just the way it is. It's generational programming. So you have to understand, now you're an adult. You had nothing you were an immature child. All this programming happened. And then somewhere around 10, it stops. So that means for the rest of your life, that's the old rusty program in your head. So it's that old program that was made when you were a child. So if you were told you weren't good enough, or people like us can't have that, or whatever it was, that will be ingrained in you. No matter what you're trying to people think positive thinking, and that's great, but it's not enough, because that's not going to get rid of the ingrained beliefs that you have. So I tell people, you just have to realize, just keep an open mind to the fact that there could be something else, because that's enough. Most people will go, oh, they're just convinced of their belief and that's it. But if you keep an open mind a little bit, you'll start to see, wow, there is so much more here than I thought. I mean, like I said, the fact that we're programmed, it's the truth. I mean, we know it. It's not like we're programmed in an evil way, like our parents were evil scientists and they were like, we're going to program, this. They got programmed too. And so did their parents. And so it's generational trauma. It's generational struggle. It's all of that. So you're not just born and, you're you. It's like you're born and you have a religion and you have a name and you have all these things that you didn't choose. So, just starting to become aware. Just start becoming aware what's going on in your mind. What is the voice in your head saying? And when you start to do that, it separates you. You start to get space between you and the voice that's I call it the bitchy roommate. You can't get away from it. You've got somebody inside your head narrating your life. Oh my God, remember last time you tried that and you fell on your butt? Oh, everything you do. And it's 90% negative. I mean, think about it, right? It's 90% negative. So you just have to start becoming aware when you're having an off moment. What is that voice saying in your head when you're driving? And you're not going, I have to turn left, I have to turn right. You're not doing that. Automatically, you're getting where you need to go. And in your head, you're thinking about lunch. You're thinking about the fight you're going to have later with your spouse. You're doing all of these mental things that, you're literally living your universe inside your mind. So you just got to kind of step out of yourself to see there's an entire universe here. It's not just about us. That's what we all think. It's like, this is our moment. It's not. I mean, it took billions of years to get here, of all these things having to be perfect to be here. And we think this moment is about us. So, awareness is the first thing.
I think that's so powerful. And what I would say with this is two things that I think really help me understand and learn what you're talking about, which is I think that as a society, we grow up and we should just be happy and we encourage happy emotions, but we discourage or ignore or shove down negative emotions. And so I think as a result of that, a lot of adults, I definitely was one of those people, didn't feel comfortable dealing with some of those emotions. And I felt them, but I didn't feel safe to share them. I felt alone in that process. And so often I would disconnect from those emotions, right? Try to shove them down and do other things. And so the first thing I would share with those listening is if you actually stopped and understood and listened to what you're saying to yourself and had conversations, you would realize that's just part of being human. You're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you. And then the second thing I did to sort of learn what you're talking about is I spent a week journaling. I went in a program about 6 years ago, and I would say I got like 20 years of therapy in about 10 weeks. Very powerful. And it's what taught me about much of what you're teaching about belief systems and solving the root cause of those problems versus talk therapy and some of the other things that just further ingrain them. And through that process, I had to journal my thoughts on a daily basis. And when I did that, it was shocking, and I would probably say disconcerting, how incredibly cruel I was to myself. That if an individual said the things to me that I was saying to myself on a daily basis, it would be abusive and I would leave.
Now, wait, because just think what you're writing and you're seeing it after you write it. That is what the voice is saying nonstop inside your head. That's what's going on. But you never realize it because you don't take any time with yourself to journal, to meditate, to pray, to chant, whatever. We miss that connection. But that is what's happening. You hit it on the nail on the head. What you wrote down is what that voice is saying inside your head. You don't even realize it.
100%. And it was, to your point, 90% of our thoughts are repetitive. So it was over and over and over again. And what I love about what you're sharing is if people could take this understanding and leave open that space that what my brain is telling me isn't necessarily true, and that there's power in being able to create a better life, a happier life, by giving myself space that maybe it's not true, and actually spending time to be aware of what are those thoughts that I keep telling myself. Those are the key to be able to start to change your life. But if we think that there's something wrong with those emotions, we don't want to deal with them, we keep shoving them down and not listening to them, or we get so rigid in believing, quote unquote, this is just who I am, we never have the opportunity to grow. And for me, I didn't really realize I grew up in an environment where it was more black and white, and this is who I am. And I didn't realize that you have the power to create and change your beliefs. And you can find out that the beliefs that you have actually aren't true or aren't helpful, and you can replace them. And I can say one of the reasons I'm really excited to have you share your journey, your experience, and your expertise is that in the last 7 years, I've probably replaced 90% of the belief systems I had.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's powerful. And the way that my life has transformed my life in many ways is polar opposite what it was 7 years ago when I was killing myself in a corporate job, working 14 hours a day, not sleeping because of my exhaustion and stress, and going through these horrible cycles of burnout. I was highly successful on the piece of paper, but really imbalanced in my life. You know, my job really was driving everything, and the level of anxiety and stress that I had was incredibly high. And I felt trapped in that. And I think there are so many people today that are experiencing what I was experiencing and have no idea that they can completely transform their life. They can create exactly what they want, but it requires being open to new ways of doing things and learning and understanding that your mind is incredibly powerful.
Well, you were given the most incredible supercomputer ever invented, right? When you buy a cell phone, you get a manual. When you buy a computer, you get a manual, a toaster, a microwave, anything. You get this thing, which is the most amazing. I mean, we could never duplicate this thing. Man could never build this. I mean, the mind is an incredible thing. We have no idea how it works. Not only do we not know how it works, nobody ever tells us how it works. I remember in school, my teacher would say, Brent, you need to focus. And finally I said one day, did we learn that one day? Because I don't remember. And she admitted we didn't, and she didn't really know either. I mean, they tell us these things. Oh, you've got to do this more, focus more, but never telling us and letting us understand this incredible power. And the other thing is, we never see reality. We're always seeing reality through the lens of our past. Every one of us, it's like we're in a different movie. We've had all different experiences. And so we've had different families, different careers, different friends, different everything, different traumas that happen to us. So when we're looking at reality, you're seeing it through the lens of your past. You know, if somebody looks like somebody that you didn't like, that's going to bother you, right? There's all the things you want. There's all the things you don't want. And you're trying to make those happen. It's like we're doing all these, it's like we're pitting ourselves against the universe. You know, it's happening, but if we don't like the moment, we're trying to change it instead of trying to accept the moment. It's here and then deal with it. But a lot of people don't want it. And it's like you said. So what happens is if it's something you really don't like, you don't get rid of it. Like in logic, you think you would, you store it in you. I mean, that's what you do. You're holding that in there with willpower. Every time something reminds you of it, it comes up. All the feelings come up and you know it. It's like when somebody says, oh, don't go there with me. Or, you know, that means you're getting close to something that bothers me. We can't talk about that with your father. You know, we can't. Yeah, that means there's some stuff in there, right? We do that with millions of things. I don't like snakes. I like this. I don't like this. I don't like the way this felt. So we put those things in, and then anything similar that comes up, it's our minds trying to protect us. Oh, this is like that time that this happened. That's what happens. So when you're living through that lens, it's like 40% of the time you're in the past. You're worried about all these things that happened already. Maybe if I had done this, this wouldn't have happened. He would have stayed, right? 40% of the time during the day, you're in the future, worried about all the things that are going to happen, stressing yourself out, getting anxiety, and literally making yourself sick. That's what everybody does. I mean, stress, disease is dis-ease. You're not at ease with yourself. You're creating this, right? So 40 and 40 leaves 20% in the moment, which is the only time you can really do anything. The past is over. The future, when it gets here, it'll be the present moment. The future is not really a thing until it's here. But this moment, nobody wants. It's always like, we want the next moment. We want the payoff moment. I'm making coffee. I don't want this moment. I want to drink the coffee. It's Monday. I want to be on Friday where I can go out this weekend. So you're always looking ahead for happiness. And it's like what that does, it puts happiness on a hamster wheel that's ahead of you for the rest of your life. Because you're saying it's not where you are. So you're thinking this guy's going to make me happy. This car is going to make me happy. A smaller butt is going to make whatever it is. And then, you know, that'll make you happy for what? 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And then the next thing's it's never enough. So when you're living that way, happiness is ahead of you, and it will constantly elude you. So like I said earlier about awareness, I tell people, get a Post-it note, get 4 or 5 Post-it notes, make a heart, a happy face, put them around your house, in the car, at the office, wherever you go. And that's going to be just like you did with your journaling. You're going to do that for a week. And so anytime you see that Post-it note, you see that heart, you take your notepad and you write down what is on your mind, because that's going to give you that split second where your mind's still going to be talking and you've stopped. And now, and then you're going to hear what's going on. You start writing that down. And after a week, you go back and read what you wrote, just like you said. You're going to see stuff. Not only does it make no sense, it's no longer logical, but it is literally just BS. And when you do that, the hold it has on you starts to go away, because it's like anything, when you drag like a big bad monster into the light, it starts to it can't hold up to the scrutiny. And so our mind is just used to doing that, running by itself. When you start being aware of what it's saying, that's the first big key to get in there and start separating yourself. Because people think the voice is them. They think that that's me talking in there. And it's not. It's just the voice of your conditioned past. Like I said, there's 2 voices: the voice you can make talk, like if you're thinking about something, but then there's the voice that just you're driving down the road and the voice says, remember that time at your birthday party when you peed your pants or whatever? It takes you down a tangent. Where did that come from? That's what we have to start working on. And you do that by starting to become aware of what the voice is saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's so much that you said that I'm trying to figure out the angle that I want to go, but I think I'm going to go backwards, because you said some things I think are really powerful, right? The key is to start with self-awareness. And I think non-judgment of what you're hearing yourself say. Because if you become aware, but you believe all of that, then you get caught in a guilt and shame spiral then you actually can't move forward. So awareness, and also recognize that what your brain tells you in many cases is not the truth. To your point, it's your conditioned past. The second thing you talked about was how we see reality. What I often help my clients understand is that I would describe it as we've all been driving cross country for 20 years and we've never gotten a car wash. So everything you look at, right, you have to clear the windshield to be able to see reality. Years ago when I started this journey, I read a number of books about the gold hidden right at your feet, and about studies that had been done that showed that someone literally would pass by money sitting right in front of them and not see it because of their mindset. And I think that this is so critical, as I've been able to do this and watched hundreds of clients now do the same, is the ability to understand what you're saying, which is, right, that we aren't seeing clearly. We're seeing through the lens of our experiences, our perspectives, our traumas, and our beliefs. And if you can begin to see that and understand that, therefore, that means we all have blind spots. We all can't see the full reality. I don't care who you are. I don't care how brilliant you are. I don't care what you've been through. You'll never, and I don't believe that any of us can see the totality, but we can benefit from recognizing that we don't. And I think often those who are high achievers, who really chase after success in life, can sometimes be fearful of asking for help or feel like that makes them look weak. But what I see consistently is the people who generate the highest value, who are seen as the most successful, who build the best relationships, best businesses, careers, families, etc., have come to recognize that they have blind spots and they can't see reality in its entirety. And it's that collaboration and recognizing that they have dirt on the windshield that yields much greater benefit and much faster results with a hell of a lot less work.
Well, every successful person I've ever worked with, and I've worked with, big celebrities, and I tell you, Joan Rivers, Phyllis Diller, they were huge proponents of the magic of believing. It was one of those synchronistic moments when it's like the book that started it out is the book that, Joan took me, because I opened for her, to meet Phyllis Diller, because that book, she credited her whole career to the magic of believing. It changed the way she thought for the rest of her life. And yeah, you just have to understand that you're not seeing reality. Not just that, but there's really no competition. That's the other thing that's hard to understand. There's always this idea that if I don't get mine first, you're not, there's only so much of the pie and that sort of thing. But you can't really compete with someone when no 2 people ever have ever been, will ever be equal. They don't have the same beliefs, the same past, the same anything. So when there's 2 people standing looking at something, they're not seeing the thing. They're seeing the thing through their windshield, which is a great analogy. So yeah, again, it's just kind of giving yourself, if you're just starting, just giving yourself a little bit of an open mind, even if you don't believe. And again, it's not changing your religion or anything. People always think it has something to do with, it's a religious thing. You've got to change your religious beliefs, and it's not. It's the way life works. We are just caught up in all this worldly crap that we don't understand. It's really easy. It's like you're in a river and you're fighting, that you're trying to row and it's splashing in your face, and you realize you're rowing the wrong direction. And the river's, if you would just leave the oars in the water and let go, you would float along, but you're not. We fight everything. It's like we don't like this. And if we do like this, we want to keep that too, right? It's like we see a beautiful sunset, and then what do, right? We want to go live on the corner where we saw the sunset. It doesn't happen, like that. In our life, there's maybe 7, 8 times when you've got this huge rush of energy. You get married, you have your first kiss, something happens, and all of a sudden this energy comes up in you. That energy's in there all the time, except you never feel it because you've got so much crap stored in there. And everything that you get rid of, little tiny things. It's going to rain tomorrow and I'm going to a picnic and now I'm mad. Let it go. I mean, come on, right? Little things like that. If you let them go, that little bit of willpower that it took to hold that in you comes back to you. And that's what successful people know. Successful people understand, like you said, okay, I can't see clearly here, right? But when they get the willpower back, they focus it where it matters. So like goal, and then they release something, instead of just, the power comes back, goes right to the goal. And that's what a successful person knows. They know they don't know everything. They know they hire people that can help them in the areas they're deficient. I don't want to say normal people, but everyday people, they can't do that. They can't afford that. They can't live like that. But a successful, wealthy person can go, okay, I don't know A, B, or C, so I'm going to hire experts in those 3 areas. And that's why they seem to do so well, money-wise, career-wise. But then you see Anthony Bourdain kills himself. You see Kate Spade. I mean, they're not happy. And nobody has ever committed suicide, think about it, without your mind telling you to. That's the only way. Your mind, I can't do this anymore. You're blah, 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 whatever it is. Not one person has ever killed themselves without that. That's how bad your mind can be. It can literally end you. It can be your worst enemy if you let it. And that's what it's like. We've got a cage in our mind and there's a gorilla up there and it's just going nuts. And we've never had to train it. And so it just has the run of our mind, but we are actually in charge of it. We usually sit down to that gorilla and let it just run us when we really have all the power. We just have no idea how to use it.
Yeah, that reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, The Wizard of Oz. You always had the power, my dear. You just didn't know it. And I love where you're headed here, because I think for me, I grew up, my dad is a PhD in psychology. My sister got her master's degree. I went to school for psychology. I knew from about 10 years old that people and helping people was my thing. But I knew a lot of the more traditional methods of things. And I saw the gaps and the holes that didn't make sense to me, that didn't feel right to me, because I was going to go get my PhD and do marriage and family psychology. And I think there's a lot of belief systems that you just have to override all of these things, and they always have to be terrible. And I guess what I would tell people is, yes, if you've never learned how to train it, it is this horrible, mean, bully gorilla constantly. But when you actually get to the root cause and you can clear out the trauma and the belief systems that are sitting there, you can have peace of mind. You can quiet your mind. You can see life from a more clear view. You can have peace. It doesn't have to be this thing of constantly having to override or push or shove or grind. And I think so much of our society, there's a whole pocket of people that are talking about belief systems and overriding these things. But it's from this place of not actually solving the root. It's from this place of like Band-Aids. So I'm just going to override it all of the time. And it creates this belief system, I think, for people that life has to be hard when that's not really true. So I'm interested in your perspective, because you talked about the river. I know that to be true, that you can actually trust the river, that the river actually will give you far more than what you would ever get trying to paddle yourself. And so I would venture to bet that you have some belief systems or some knowledge or experience around how this can actually come to a place of peace and ease versus having to constantly override and be challenging.
Yeah, because again, it's you versus life that way. It's you versus the universe. people don't get the idea that, and I love Michael Singer has this, he does this talk about how the universe was created and everything that it took, and it was born in the stars, and that we were created from stardust, and all the things that happened, to get the earth and to get us here. And we're here for a very brief time, right? And we forget we're on a planet that is hurtling through outer space, right? And we're worried about what Mary thinks of our dress, and what time dinners are going. I mean, it makes no sense at all. So, you have to know that life does not have to be hard. We think that in order to get success, you have to work hard and struggle and go through all these failures. It's not that way. I mean, of course, some people have done that on their way. And success, I always say too, is not just money, because a lot of people think when they hear success, they think right away it's just wealth. And of course it's not. I mean, wealth is one thing, but relationships, health, love, all of that. And in my life, everything I've ever been up against, which was drinking, cancer, pain pills, smoking, all of that, even weight loss. I mean, I've lost 40 pounds in the last couple of months, became a vegan, which I'm from Ohio, right? I'm a big boy from Ohio. The idea that I don't eat meat, eggs, dairy, any of that stuff, that is hey, that people like us don't do that. I mean, right? I had to change that. But it's easy when you realize almost everything, and I'm talking 98.9% of what we face is a mindset thing, because it's the way we're facing it. Even health. Somebody goes to the doctor and the doctor says, oh no, you've got stage 4 cancer. You've got 2 weeks to live. Boom. If you believe that, you take everything someone says, that starts to become your reality. So you have to realize it's the mindset. It's the way I'm looking at this. It's my perception of things. And it took billions of years to get here. This moment is not about me, right? So it's not about what you like and what you don't like, because that's what we make it. I want this. I got to have that. I don't want this. And we try to twist and turn everything in our life, every person, every opportunity, every physical thing. We try to manipulate it to be the way we want it. When wouldn't it be easier to just release the idea of what you want and you don't want? I mean, you can have your dream, what you're going for, your goal, but I like this, I don't like this. I like it when it's hot, I don't like it when it's cold. I like this, I don't like that. I like blue, I don't like red. Your whole life is destroyed, because now everything that you do is through that lens. It's like and dislike. I don't want this to happen. You start to let those things go, and you realize it's not you versus the universe. The universe now has opened up, because there's zillions of moments going on right now. But all you and I can see is this moment in front of us, right? If I look this way, there's a moment going on over here and I'm missing this moment. So there's zillions of moments. We think this moment is everything. This is nothing. I mean, as far as data, this is nothing at all. This is like nothing. So we're always so obsessed with us and what's happening in this moment. By stepping back, again, just awareness, stepping back, but just realizing it's not you versus, it shouldn't be you versus the universe. God's not against you. I hear people say that all the time. God hates me. Why? Oh, because I had a vacation this week and it rained every day. Give me a break. But people, that's what they do. It's always, oh, they're out to get me. It's somebody else's fault. Personal responsibility is huge in mind power, because it just shows that you're I did this. No matter what happened to you in the past, that I'm sure people have gone through horrible things. But now as an adult, somebody was telling me about their relationship with their mother and this horrible relationship. And this went on. And they were telling me this after an event one time. And I said, well, have you talked to her? Now, she died in 1984. Okay, so she's been dead since 84, but not for you, because you're living this just like she's still doing it to you. And that's what we do. Like, you could go to prison for armed robbery and you could be out in whatever, 5 years, 10 years. We never let ourselves off the hook. We never give ourselves reprieve for the things we've done. The voice will start telling us. And it's like that voice knows everything you've ever done. It knows everything you've ever done that you never got caught doing. It knows everything you've ever done that you would die if somebody else knew. And that voice will use it against you immediately. I mean, think about it. That voice can be so nasty, right? So it's just realizing there is another system going on that you don't even have to understand it. Just like you said, just becoming aware of it, just giving it a little crack in the door, it's going to be enough. I mean, life has happening. Life's plan for you is incredible. And again, it has billions of years behind it. Every moment that had to happen for it to get, this person had to meet that person, had to have a kid, had to do this, whatever it took to get here, and we don't like it. I don't want this. This is uncomfortable. Come on. If you accept the moment, if you don't like it, you change it, but don't refuse it. That's what everybody does. It's like, it's got to be, that way you only have a certain number. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You have certain things that you want. And so reality has to fit somehow into that. And if it doesn't, you're very upset. Right? It's got to be perfect. It's never going to happen. So instead of wanting that, how about making yourself happy? And then everything else on the outside will change. You won't be looking at it through that lens.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's often what I tell my clients when we talk about achieving goals. I think often people can lack confidence in achieving their goals. But to your point, if the only way I win is this very structured way where all of these things have to happen over a 6-month period of time, and any one of those things doesn't happen in sequence, then I quote unquote fail, meaning I only have 1 or 2 ways to win. Versus if I actually expand what that looks like and I use real data at real time to adapt, I might now have thousands of ways to win, many of which are probably way better than what my brain would already come up with already. When you talk about this, there's such power in that people don't even understand. You also mentioned personal responsibility. This is probably one of my favorite topics. So I'm excited to dive into this with you. I'll share with you a little bit about my perspective, and then I think this is a great place to take the audience. My perspective and experience, and what I've continued to see to be true, is that life is always teaching you lessons, and you'll keep getting them until you learn them. And that life is always working for you. And anytime life is not working in the way you anticipate, it's actually a gift. A gift to be able to say, what is the lesson I'm being shown? Because the reality is it's like a spider web. Normally, we will only see that lesson maybe in one place. I think often we see it in our career because that's the easiest place to see it because it feels more removed. But whatever is happening in your career is also happening in your personal life, in your marriage, with your children, etc., when you understand how to connect those dots. And so I think often as a society, we're so used to being victims or victimizing ourselves. This boss was micromanaging. My job is terrible. This company is X. It rained, so my whatever's ruined. But in every single relationship and every single opportunity, we are a co-creator. And so when you can begin to say, what are the things I have control over, I could have changed, it now removes your energy and focus from something you cannot control, where you're draining your energy, to something you can. And I'll give an example. I have a client, just wonderful business owner, and something happened in her business last week. And when we got on the call, I was like, what's going on? Your energy's not so great. What's happening? And she started to explain to me how her team had made this big mistake. And because of that big mistake, it was going to cost her quite a bit of money. She was very frustrated about it. They should know better, etc. And as we started to talk about that, I said to her, okay, where could you have done something different? Where is your responsibility? How could you have shifted this? Well, it went from this interesting discussion of my team said that they were going to hold this item for a customer. Somebody comes in 20 minutes later and they ask that person, are you, Joe? And the guy says yes. And then they ask Joe several questions that are related to what he was doing in his delay to come to the store. The guy continues the conversation as if he's Joe. The guy and Joe's wife pays for this item and they leave. 10 minutes later, the actual guy who had held the stuff, real Joe, shows up. Real Joe's upset because the item's gone, right? Now, in order to get real Joe the item, it's now going to cost the business owner a lot of money. A lot of frustration about this and how the team could have seen it differently. Why didn't the team check his driver's license, XYZ? Well, when it came down and I said, how could this have been done differently? What I actually was told was like, oh, well, we actually don't hold product. So I was like, wait, ding, ding, ding. So you have a company policy, you don't hold things, but your team held it. And then as a consequence, all these other things happened. Why do you have it written down that there are no holds? Is it clear, very clear to the team, this is how we operate? Well, no, I don't have it written. Okay, great. So there's a place where there was a co-creation because there was lack of clarity and lack of alignment about what was necessary as a team. So as we started going through that, it was very easy to start to identify, oh, here's patterns of consistent things where the team is unclear or the team is unable to execute upon what you need. And so when you can begin to see that, it was like, oh, what is my ownership then of this circumstance? My ownership of this circumstance is I need to create something so crystal clear it can't be misunderstood. And then I need to see if the people I have cannot achieve those things, they need to go because they're not capable of being on the team. or following the rules. And so it went from the circumstance of a lot of frustration about how the team screwed up and it would cost all this money. And what I said is, isn't this interesting? This circumstance is going to quote unquote cost you $500. But I venture to bet it's going to save you tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars because your team actually doesn't have the skills and knowledge they need to successfully support the customers coming into your store over and over and over again. And if we can't stop, to your point, and see the circumstance and understand it's working for me, what am I here to learn? What is my co-creation and responsibility? You can't ever change that. We just get caught in the loop that it's someone else's problem when in fact it might be the very best gift we ever have.
Absolutely. I mean, that happens a lot. People don't. Synchronicities happen all the time. People say it's a coincidence. I mean, not to what you're saying, but things happen all the time that we just don't realize, we don't pay attention to. And to your point you said earlier, it's going to come back. It's going to slap you harder the next time. And it's going to slap you harder the next time if you keep ignoring it. Because I mean, the universe is perfect. You may not like what's going on, but the universe to get here in billions of years later is perfect. Everything that has happening is happening because it's built up to this moment. So you just have to embrace the idea that, take some personal responsibility. Nobody's out to get you. And what could you do? And journaling is a great thing for that, because a lot of people, since they live in their mind, when you get it on paper, what I always tell people, and I do gratitude every day, but I tell people the best thing to do is set your alarm for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, because after about 3 minutes, most people are going to start running out of things to say. That's when the really good stuff's going to come out. Because the beginning is easy, because you can think of a lot of stuff in 3 minutes, but when it's 20 minutes and you have 17 left and you have to keep writing, then you just write, and then you're going to be blown away. Just like you said, you go back and read what you wrote down. So that's a great way to start learning responsibility, because, if you're living in your head all the time, you don't have the distance to see that you do have responsibility. You have all the excuses in your mind. But when you separate yourself from that by doing anything, like I said, prayer, I meditate every day, 40 minutes twice a day. And it's changed my life over the years. I've increased the time just because it's like having a chapel inside. You go in there and you're able to connect to your inner self. So people just are afraid to spend time with themselves. Nobody wants to go in a room, shut the door, and close their eyes, meditate, pray, chant, contemplate, whatever it is. Because when you get alone in that room and there's no phone to play with and you're not on TikTok and the dog's not in there, the voice is going to start. And the voice is going to, that's why people won't meditate, because they think, oh, that voice is torturing me. But in meditation, when you're first starting, it's a gift, because like what you said too about red flags are a gift. When something pops up, that's a gift. Okay, there's something I need to look at. Here's something that I need to work through. If something keeps coming up and you keep pushing it down, and our mind is so spectacular that literally while we're dreaming, we're sleeping. If there's something really big that you've been trying to get through, your mind will convert it into image not the same thing. So if your parents died in, a car accident or something, all of a sudden you're dreaming about two birds that are free and they're flying away. That is your mind hiding of what that's about, so it can get past your consciousness. Even in sleep, that's what your mind will do. It's really there to protect you. But we have, I don't want to say bastardized it, but we've changed it so much that it's so negative, because we either want what we want or we don't want what we don't want. So it's like either way, right? If we get what we want, it's got to be that perfect thing. If we don't get that, that's negative, right? So we have everything, it becomes a negative over time, because it's like, if you don't like snakes, now you see a coiled up piece of rope, right? That reminds you of the snake. You get all the feelings, they rush back through. Your whole life is going to be like that. Nobody can say snake. Nobody can have a snake on their birthday cake. Nobody can scare you with a fake snake. Your whole life would be just that one thing. And imagine if it was just that, but it's not. You've done that with snakes and the dark and other people and this and that. And you have thousands of things inside you. So just imagine what, the snake does to somebody, but think about everything they've put in there. And that's how you live your life, through that lens, that dirty windshield. I love that, dirty windshield.
Thank you. I really appreciate what you said about meditation. I used to be one of those people, I could not sit. It was like the to-do list would immediately start, and then I would get more and more stressed. And I think there's validity to address this, because I think this is how most people are living after thousands of conversations and doing this, which is, most of us have no idea that we are living in fight or flight all of the time. We feel unsafe. And because we feel unsafe, we're constantly trying to control everything. It has to go this way. It has to look this way, right? That's why we're oaring so fast. And so there's this belief system that if I stop, I can't meditate because my brain won't shut off because of these things. But to your point, what I see is like that chatter in your head, the more you stuff it down or ignore it, the worse it gets over and over and over and over again. Your emotions are a gift. And if we understood that by listening to ourselves, we gain freedom, I think it could open the door to being willing to be uncomfortable at the beginning. What I see is this constant fear that if I actually listen to this, I'm going to go into a mental spiral and I will never get out. And that doesn't have to be true, right? Especially if you're sitting in these circumstances and you don't feel like you know how to do this on your own, get support. There are great coaches and people who can help walk you through that so you can learn how to train your brain and not get caught. But I think there's a lot of mental barriers at the beginning to that because of what people's experiences are. And it doesn't have to be that way. I used to get into huge mental spirals until I understood that there was a different way to approach and work through things.
Another thing that I tell people all the time, which is these are mind hacks that you can use like today, right away. If you're listening to this, right? You want to start down this path, the Post-it note, right? The awareness. But one of my favorite things is I tell people, you name the voice in your head, okay? The voice in my head, I named it Carl, right? You just give it a funny name, whatever you want to do. Here's why it works so well. Because now, when the voice starts, you can go, oh, there goes Carl again. And you look at the voice like a petulant child. It's like a kid who's not getting his way. All the energy gets sucked out of it because it's no longer the voice of God. It's not the voice of the future. It is this mechanism that's, I look at it as a child. So you give it a funny name and you name it, because what we're trying to do by the Post-it notes, by the awareness, by the belief, by all of it is you're creating space. You're giving yourself space. You work out something, the energy comes back. But what happens next time? A big drama unfolds in front of you, something that would have normally sucked you in and you're arguing. And for a lot of people, they get sucked into something and it could be a week, a month, a lifetime. They never get out of it. And the lucky ones, it's a week or two and they realize, I really spiraled. I really spiraled there, right? But by naming the voice, it makes it funny. It takes the power away. And every time that happens and you do that, you get a little bit of that life force energy back. You get a little bit of that willpower back. And you're able then to focus it where it matters. So anything you can do, like we talked about earlier, just step outside of yourself to get a different perspective. And you don't want to listen to it, like you said, and becoming spiraled in what it's saying. You want to look at it without judgment from a distance. It's like we're the overseer, we're the soul, we're the conscissness. The voice, we're kind of looking at it. It's almost like you're watching a movie. This is the movie of Brent's life, right? But it's not. It's like you're the director of this movie. So you're trying to make it be, it's got to be this way. The ending has to be like this. I have to be with someone like this. Forget being the director. Just write the thing, act in the thing, but stop trying to be everything and manipulate the story. And you talked about goals. I always tell people too, a friend of mine was Gavin MacLeod. He was the captain of the Love Boat. It was a big show back in the 80s. And he used to say, people are like cruise ships. And I say, this is going to be some horrible analogy, but it was very profound. And he said, they have these ships, they're $100 million ships. They can literally walk up to the bridge. They can input the destination. They can turn everything on and they can leave. And if they wanted to, and the ship will arrive at the next port because everything is computerized, right? He said, what would happen if you went up to the bridge, you turned the engines on, you shoved everything forward and you left without inputting anything and inputting the destination? Of course, you'd crash. You'd never make it. That's what most people do. They have a desire, a dream or whatever, but there's no goal. It's, I want to be rich. I want to be happy. I want to be in a loving relationship, but no particulars. Okay. And I don't think you want to try to figure it out because like you said, it's like trying to go, okay, I want this, but then I've got to do this. And then this has to happen. That's what people have to let go of. The control idea. It's like you order something from Amazon, right? And so every day you're like, oh yeah, where's that thing I ordered, right? It's just going to show up if you just leave it alone. You don't have to get on the phone every day and ask where your package is. That's what we do. We want something, we want it, but what we try to do, it's like the law of attraction. Law of attraction is real, but it's not real to the fact that you can sit on your sofa, pray for a Ferrari, and it's going to be in your driveway. They're always missing the action step, the step when you actually start feeling it and moving into it. That's what nobody understands. They think it's just, I want to be a billionaire. Or I want to be rich. You have to have a specific goal. What is it that you want? I want to have 3 kids and I want to be married to this person who makes me feel this way, who does this, this, and this. Not what do they do for a living, or you know what I mean? You're specific, but not to the point where there's no options. Like you said, you're giving yourself 2 options. It has to be this way. But by saying, I want to be in a loving relationship with somebody that cares about me, where we have trust, we have this, I want to have this, I want to do this for a living, I want to be comfortable, I want to have another house, whatever. But you have then a goal. You have a plan. You can see it in your mind. You have an anchor image. I tell people, you're in line at the bank, go to your anchor image. See yourself standing on the porch of your new house with your kids and your new wife, whatever, and make yourself feel good about it. See it in your mind. You've got to have a goal. And just this daydreaming, I want to be rich, I want to be thin, I want to be this, it's not going to do it. There's not enough power there because it's just a desire. It's just, and you have 50,000 of those every day, just thoughts. It's the thoughts you put the energy in. And what do we put those energy in? It's all the negative ones. It's like, as soon as you add emotion to the thought, it becomes supercharged. It's powerful, right? We never do it with the positive stuff. It's always, oh my God, this is going to happen. Remember when this happened? It's all the negative stuff we give all the energy to. And then next time something anywhere similar happens, all the energy rushes back up. And like you break up with your girlfriend, she drives a red Ford Bronco or something. Now, every time you see a red Bronco on the road, all the feelings come back. How did that car do that to you? You're doing it to yourself, right? But because you've stored the memory and the thought as something you don't want. And now when they come up, they're coming up together. You stored them with pain, they're going to come up with pain and you're going to push them back down. How about next time they come up, you start learning to relax a little bit. You start learning to let it's energy. It's supposed to go through you. But what we do is, I don't want to stop the energy and push it down. And that's why you never feel these rushes of energy, because it's like an episode of Hoarders. You've got all this crap thrown in your house and now all the energy can't flow. And occasionally something miraculous will happen. Like I said, just like you get married and you kiss your spouse for the first time, the energy shows up. Well, the energy's there. It's running. You've just covered it with all the crap you've hoarded your entire life. So anything you work through, go with the little stuff first, the low-hanging fruit, they call it, little things. You will get there. If you just want to get there and you realize, bring some awareness to it, you're like 80% of the way, because you've opened the door enough that you're going to get that space. And like I said, that's what we're going for. Next time something dramatic happens, now all of a sudden there's space. And it's like you're in slow motion. Some drama happens and normally you get sucked into it. Now you're like, it almost feels like you're in the zone, you're in the matrix or something. Everything's happening slow and you're kind of thinking, okay, do I want to deal with this? Is this worth my peace? And 99.99% of the time, it's not. It's not worth your peace. But now you've got a decision where before somebody did something to you, you got sucked into it, your decision was taken away, and you're involved in it. Now the space allows you to decide what you're going to get involved in. That just changes everything, because you're no longer pulled here and there by everybody else's whim. You're controlling where you want to go. Hey, you want to go there to that fight? Fine. But you're making a conscious choice then to go there. You're not just getting sucked into it. So all of these things, everything that I teach is created to give you space. You're not going to see it in the short term. Meditation is it's going to eat away at things in you, but over time. You can't do it once and then expect to have miraculous things happening in your life. You've got to sit there and do it. It does take some pain. There's no other way around it. I mean, you've got to go through it. You don't have to go to a therapist and talk about it if you don't want to. Some people do that, but it's like you go to a therapist. At the end of the hour, you go home, you don't feel better. You feel just all that stuff got dredged up, and now you're living in that feeling and that emotion and all of that for another 2 days or a week or whatever. So why not, at least before you try that, try to work on yourself, because nobody knows you like you do. Nobody understands, what's going on inside. So if you really sit quietly, it doesn't take any effort. Special exercises, you don't have to meditate in a cave. You don't have to go to India. You don't have to buy a $10,000 course. All you've got to do is sit by yourself for a few minutes every day, and you will start to make this connection to you, to the real you, the inner you.
There have been so many great topics we've talked about, Brent. I hope that those of you guys listening, that you earmark this and come back to it in 3 months, 6 months, a year, because you will be a different person and different pieces of this will land with you. So many powerful concepts that we've talked about that are all life-changing. I'm going to end and wrap it up with one of the ones that you talked about I think is really powerful, and then I'll let you finish us out, Brent. Earlier, you talked about, can you take the ability to live your life as if you're watching a movie? And I've had this conversation many times as I have begun to really the shift in my personal journey about 1.5 years, 2 years ago was more into mindfulness, mind-body connection, energy, healing in different modalities, really being able to understand these proven principles that have existed, across tens of thousands of years that often many of us don't know about unless we actually study. And so this idea of being unattached emotionally to what's happening, unattached to what the outcome has to look like, but holding a vision of our values and what we want life to look and feel like without it having to be so specific, and being able to be present in that moment enough to look at it as if it is a movie so we aren't blinding ourselves, I think is so powerful. And here's what I see. Most of us are not seeing reality. We are trying to bend reality to what we want it to be because either our intuition and inner compass is telling us something different than what somebody in front of us is saying. And we are either judging ourselves that something's wrong or trying to judge that other person instead of stopping enough to say, wait a second, I have a disconnect here. What information or actual reality, real life actions do I need to understand the truth? Or we're so emotionally triggered that we are just living the past. And I find those are the two most common reasons why we get caught up. I will tell you that those that tend to be highly empathetic people, which it's me, a lot of the audience and people I surround myself by, we are so empathetic to other people's feelings that we often don't learn how to listen to ours. And the majority of the emotional spin, turmoil, and challenges we create in our life is because we aren't listening to what our inner voice is telling us. And instead, we're listening to what somebody else is saying. And we're not looking at data and we're not slowing down enough to actually see the truth for what it is. And so I share this with you because it's incredibly powerful if you would apply it. Can I just try to experience my life as if it's a movie? Give myself the space. What you said is perfect there. I always say you can't receive when your hands and mind are full. Right? Give yourself the space and then begin to see what information do I actually have? How am I feeling in this moment? And what do I want to do with that? Just doing that will radically change your life.
For sure. And just remember, you only have the data. It's like you've got to imagine we each have a computer, like a real, we go out and buy an Apple desktop. It has nothing on it, just the operating system. That's how we're born, right? So what's happening is you only have the data, the tiny bit of minuscule data from your life. That's how you're making every decision from whatever happened to you in your past. So again, that's why you're looking through a lens, because you have this, it's incomprehensible. It's so small. What's going on in the world, and you have a tiny sliver of inconsequential data that you make every decision, every choice, it's always made from that. You only have this information. Whatever you lived through, whatever you learned, whatever, whoever you are, that is your information. So you're always going to draw from that until you start expanding your consciousness and understanding. I have a ping pong ball size consciousness, just to say, okay, now I can be a apple. Now it will expand. You'll connect to universal consciousness. You're not I always tell people you're a soul. You're the soul having a human experience. Everyone thinks it's backwards, like we're all humans and we have souls. You are the overseer. And so the movie concept, I tell people you're the seat of self. That's where you seat yourself, right? To be able to live life and to, you step back from the problems. You have to look at life like a movie, because you don't see, it's not like your eyes are windows and you're seeing the world. What's happening is all this information is then being turned into impulses and coming into your mind and putting the picture back together. That's why people that have mental illness, that hear voices, and they literally have to be taken away from society because their mind, that's what's going on, right? Because it's being put together in some weird way. But you're not just seeing reality like it is. It's coming together and then it's all being formulated inside your mind. So it's easy from that point to realize you're in there. Okay, imagine you're seated in the soul's in that seat and you're watching a movie. It's a movie of your life, of Brent's life. But it's not me. I'm the soul, right? The voice isn't me. I'm watching this. So when you separate yourself like that, you're watching a movie and things happen. Great things happen, bad things happen. You're not going to change it. People die, people leave, things happen. But the way you deal with it, the way you let that, we have to be sad sometimes. But as a society, we take pills for everything. We don't want to be sad. We don't want to be this and that. And so we've completely covered over spirituality, the real idea of spirituality. It's become, it's not religious. It's you. I mean, it's just you, but nobody gets it. So, I mean, I love what you're doing. I love anybody that helps awaken people to the fact that there's more, that there's so much more than, you've ever thought, and you deserve it. It's not just for other people. It's not just for someone else. It's not when you've earned it somehow. You've earned it by birth. It's your birthright. You just don't know it.
Yeah, beautiful. Brent, thank you so much. Let me ask, how can people connect with you if they'd like to or like to learn more about what you're doing?
Well, two ways. Right now, we're actually getting a new website, but brentwebb.com is my site. The old one is still there, but there's two ways. The first way is brentsgroup.com, no apostrophe, but it's a free Facebook group. We're very selective, but it's this that I'm teaching, and it's free. It's just to get the message out there. We've got about 10,000 people in there, and it's just strategies people can use every day to start making these changes. And the other thing, meditation changed my life, and I don't believe that you can get to where I want people to go without some form of meditation, contemplation, whatever. So I put together meditationminicourse.com. It's free. You download it, but it's just an introduction. If you've never meditated before and you're watching this and you think you can't do it, trust me, if there was anybody that couldn't sit still, it was me. My butt hurts, my arm hurts. What am I having for? That's what happens. But it's a gift, because the voice talking in your head, you're in there, and this voice is talking. For the first time during your day, you are able to hear what that voice is saying, because most of the time you're not aware of it talking. So meditation gives you that. So in the beginning, you're just being there and hearing what the voice is saying is a gift. So it's a great way to start learning how to do it, and it's free. It's meditationminicourse.com. But reach out, join the group. It's all free. Again, I just want to get this into the hands of more people, because I think this is how we change the world. We don't try to change each other. We change ourselves. Then the people around us are inspired to change because of us. And then we start making change in the world. It's not like I have to change you. I have to restrict what you do. Work on you. And then everyone else will it'll come around, by osmosis, if you just work on yourself.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Like I said, this has been such an honor and a pleasure. Is there anything that you would like to share, Brent, that you haven't, or just something that, would be a great way to end our time together?
I think we did great. I mean, we talked about so many topics, but if you're watching this and you think, I can't do this isn't for me, you don't understand it, you just need to start. You need to jump in somewhere, little tiny baby steps. Like I said, just being able to, the guy in front of you Michael Singer always says, the guy in front of you is driving slow. Let it go, right? It rains. So start working on the very low hanging fruit, and you will be blown away, because that energy comes back and now you're able to focus it. So do that throughout your day. And I'm telling you, after a few weeks, you'll start to see some changes, and that will inspire you to go forward. Just feeling the motivation of results will move you forward. So you can do this. Whoever you are watching, no matter where you are, where you're from, what age you are, what sex you are, it doesn't matter. This is you. It's your gift. And so it's time to develop this so you can live the life you want to live. I mean, that's why we're here.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you guys for listening. Until next time, have a great one.